Hello, my name is Nino Lazariia. I'm a consultant at Cleantech Group, and I'm joined by Nicholas Parker, founder of CleanAI, and we're going to discuss the impact of AI on cleantech. So Nicholas, what are some of the key trends of using artificial intelligence in cleantech?
Well, first of all, it's not intuitively obvious that there is a connection between the two. But what we're seeing is that the arrival of what we would call smart digitalization, which is in other words a way of saying AI, has the potential for a massive impact on decarbonization. Research by well-known groups has suggested that AI can help us deal with up to 10% of global emissions over the coming decade, and that's a multi-trillion-dollar market. So on the supply side of innovation, we've seen roughly 30 billion USD invested in nearly 2,000 rounds of funding for startups and scale-ups in this area. 70% are the startups and the early stage companies. On the demand side, we're not seeing nearly as happy a picture yet because there isn't the expertise in the corporate world or at the operational level. And so I guess the third thing is in between those two things, we're going to have to find new and differentiated business models, and we're starting to see that.
And where do you see the highest potential for the use of AI in cleantech?
Well, what's interesting is we're seeing the impact right across the spectrum, all the sort of verticals that one would associate with clean tech, from agriculture to transport. Specifically, I guess there are sort of 3 or 4 ways that are most pronounced in what we're seeing so far. First, materials creation and discovery, and that includes things related to food, catalysts, and so on. Secondly, forecasting and advanced modeling is also really important, particularly in the conversion of the grid to electrification and so on. And then thirdly, advanced modeling, whether it's in circular economy, which is very complex and deals with many, many variables, and which heretofore has been not easy for us to address. Circularity is easy to talk about, but not necessarily easy to operationalize. And so we're seeing smart digitalization, AI, machine learning, and so on, related to the broader IoT reformation of our economy, let's say, are all areas of application that we know of so far. Down the road, we may do really wild and crazy things, like maybe you will have a digital twin that shows you what your carbon footprint is. Each one of us will have that. That's a little sci-fi-ish right now, but there's really near-term immediate applications.
Great. Can you share some examples of AI-enabled cleantech innovators that you find most interesting?
I'll give 2 examples, one from California and one from Sub-Saharan Africa, just so we have a global view on this. The one in California is a company called Aclima, the first female-founded cleantech company to be on the Cleantech 100. This is a company that does hyper-local air quality monitoring. This is really important for utilities who want to know where their methane leaks are. It's very important for insurance companies who need to track stuff. And it's also really important from an eco-justice standpoint so that the interventions go where they're most needed to decarbonize the economy. So Aclima initially used Google Street View and used all those cars that we know about. And that's a huge amount of data. Without AI, you wouldn't be able to operationalize that. The second example is a company called Okra Solar, started by a young Australian of Bangladeshi heritage who could see that there was nearly 1 billion people without access to modern energy and could see that the tools that we're using so far are not cost competitive or viable. So he combined what he could see as cheap solar with the rise of AI and put together a new business model called Mesh Grid as a Service, not microgrid, but Mesh Grid as a Service, and trialed this in very difficult markets like Cambodia and Haiti and so on, and found out that he was reducing the capital cost by up to 70%, the operational costs by about 30%, and the time to market was cut in half. And again, that's something we couldn't have done 5-10 years ago. And that gives us the potential to bring virtually every human being who's offline right now into the modern economy by having access to clean energy.
Right.
So I think those are two beautiful examples.
Right. Also, given that 80% of them, or almost 80% of them, are early stage, super interesting what's yet to come. In your view, what are some of the challenges that innovators are facing in taking full advantage of AI?
Well, the challenges include all the normal challenges of starting up a company and getting your first customers and acquiring talent and so on. But they're particularly challenging in this, what we call the clean AI space, partially because it's a new area, which means you've got to find early adopters, corporate champions, operational leaders, people who are willing to test things out and try them. But that means they've got to have the domain expertise as well. So along with that is the skills shortage that we're seeing more generally in AI, but specifically in clean AI. And then I would add a couple of other things in there is, what's the difference between clean AI, as we understand it, and the broader area of generative AI that has now become popular with ChatGPT and so on. And they're quite different. This is more a predictive tool, and generative AI, as we know, has other applications. So skills, early adopters, understanding the difference between clean AI and the broader generative AI area, I would say are probably the key differences. And then lastly, for investors, they may have domain expertise in materials and chemicals, let's say, but they don't know much about algorithms. And vice versa. We know there are people who know a great deal about AI, but really don't know much about the clean economy and where the opportunity spaces are. So the need for an ecosystem to come together is really important. Big companies, little companies, public policy providers, and all the rest of the enablers that are required, the stakeholders, are going to be really important. So the kind of services that the Cleantech Group offers and what we're looking to do at CleanAI are going to be really important, particularly if we're going to spread this to the parts of the world that are often excluded.
Right. And now looking forward, what are the big opportunities? What are you most excited about?
Well, I'm excited about the huge capital deployment opportunity. The research that we've done with the Cleantech Group has shown that there's about 138 billion USD that's going to be needed just to help the existing startups scale and to help fund the new startups that are going to come in. So that's a massive opportunity, and I'm really excited about it. And I think we'll look back and realize that AI is not just a way of creating nice poems and things like that, but can really play a seminal role in this epic challenge that we're all facing, which is climate change and the broader sustainability agenda.
Thank you very much for joining, and we're looking forward to see how this space unfolds.
Thank you, Nino.